mission, and we are ready for every scenario as we ride this amazing space launch system and the Orion spacecraft.
But another reason we're going back to the moon is to fulfill NASA's mission,
which is to explore the unknown in air and space, to innovate for the benefit of humanity, and to inspire the world through discovery. And when we succeed and when we
accomplish the things that we set out to accomplish, that inspiration not only can set up new things to happen, but it also is a reminder in tough times that we're capable of doing great things when we work together.
The thing I love about the moon is that it's not just a beacon for exploration and this platform of possibilities for incredible missions like this, but it has benefits. That's actually why we're racing towards it. Those benefits are really wide in nature. You have everything from innovation, technology development, not only for future missions going deeper into the solar system, but technologies that come back to Earth. You have inspiration, a whole generation of people starting this pipeline of STEM workers and manufacturers and operators that are excited to see what you can do when you work hard and you come together as a team.
When I think about the four of us flying around the far side of the moon, seeing that Earth rise, taking images and video and sending them back to you, the feeling that I have inside is hope. We know that Artemis 2 is not the solution for humanity on planet Earth, but it is a contribution in the positive column. We hope that just for a moment that people will pause and say, wow, it's extraordinary when you look back upon the Earth with over 8 billion people, and you see this concrete example of what humanity can do, this extraordinary thing when we set big goals and we work together to achieve them.
Now, Kennedy's launch control team takes us to liftoff, but then mission control at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston takes over. That's where we have our Gary Jordan embedded with that team. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Megan and Nicole, it's great to be joining you from here in Houston, Texas. I'm in NASA's Mission Control Center, where the Artemis II Ascent flight control teams, led by Flight Director Judd Freeling, recently started their shift to monitor the Orion spacecraft integrity, the Space Launch System, and the crew to make sure all criteria is met to commit to today's launch and the mission ahead. The team you see here in this room today has been training extensively to prepare for the highly dynamic phase of flight that begins shortly after engine ignition. Teams here will be monitoring the flight of the Space Launch System, Orion, and of course the Artemis II crew on board as they make their way from the Kennedy Space Center into Earth orbit. The lead console positions will be in this room, called the White Flight Control Room, a room which traces its legacy to the Space Shuttle program, with the first shift supporting STS-70 in 1995, more than 30 years ago. Each console represents an expert in a particular discipline, whether it be communications, propulsion, crew health, life support systems, or trajectory. And each of these individuals has a support team in other rooms, each ensuring that no data point is left unchecked, no procedure is missed, and combining efforts as one Artemis team to ensure crew safety and mission success. After liftoff, Mission Control Houston will be staffed around the clock over the next 10 days until the spacecraft is safed for the recovery teams and the crew is extracted from integrity and brought aboard the recovery vessel. The roar of a powerful Space Launch System liftoff is just the beginning. The mission is, of course, a test mission, and the first with humans on board Orion and in deep space. The crew's job is to put the systems and capabilities of Orion to the test, taking us closer to a sustained presence on the lunar surface. It's great to see the crew gathered around the table. Megan, with that, we'll toss it back to you as we continue to monitor from here in Mission Control Houston. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Gary. Yes, a pre-flight tradition that we have seen with our crewed flights and our astronauts, the card game, Nicole.
Yeah, you know, this is a fun time for the crew. Kind of relax a little bit, play a card game with the chief. You can see Scott Tingle there is the dealer today. Looks like they're playing high card wins. So Victor won, he's out. Now Jeremy's out. You know, there are two schools of thought on this game. Either you want to get rid of all your bad luck or go out on a high note. So it looks like the crew chose we're going out on a high note. And, you know, I think one of my favorite parts when I talked to Reed about this is he was just excited to play a game with his old boss from Naval Test Pilot School. So once again, his boss today.
Yeah, and I love this part of the tradition because this is when, again, you usually see them like, yeah, laughing, but very focused still. But when they get to this table, laughs, high fives, smiles, just really a brief moment of levity in what can be and will be a very long day for them.
Yes, you know, it's a long day. There's a lot of preparation that goes in today, and so they're just, I think, at least for us, it was a nice brief moment of some relaxation, a couple laughs, a moment to take a few deep breaths and reflect on the mission ahead, and then, get some high fives as well.
And so with their bad luck dispelled, some good luck from Scott Tingle, let it seem like there, right?
Yes, definitely. It's actually a really fun tradition. I think that card game is more steeped in tradition than anything else. Every crew has played that same card game.
As you said, Nicole, the primary reason for why they're there, to suit up, to do communications checks, to do pressure checks, all done. And now it seems like Reed had some words for the team in that room.
Yeah, this day can't happen without thousands of people, right? And so the suit room is a great example of that. You've got all of the suit techs, and you've got your support team there, everyone who has made this day possible. They've been working with the suit team for years at this point, getting ready.
So some fist bumps to the group. Again, the suit team are the folks dressed up in those white, very snazzy outfits. Special outfits that we can talk a little bit more about later. But each crew member was assigned their own suit technician. So as you said, working very closely with the same person to make sure that the crew felt comfortable and ready in these suits as they lift off from Kennedy Space Center.
Right, and each suit is slightly different, each person is slightly different, and so these suit techs know each individual super well. They know exactly how they like to get into the suit, exactly where things might get caught, or small adjustments that might need to be made. So they know their suit techs well, and their suit techs know them very well.
And so as we take a couple of pictures here, we really hope that you are learning a lot about the suits and the process of checking them out for a mission. But imagine the opportunity to get a hands-on demonstration from people who helped design these suits. Take a look.
Does anyone want to try on one of the gloves? I love showing the kids the suit. I love how excited they get about space.
Oh! So that would be... It just goes in there?
We got to bring some stuff for them to actually put their hands in, and some of them were very excited because they want to be astronauts when they grow up.
I would love to be an astronaut. That would be incredible. I'd like to be like an engineer that like maybe designs the suits.
Whether it's the call, the orange color, every aspect has an important function for our astronauts in space.
It's going to be amazing seeing astronauts up close to the moon again.
And that was a special event at Johnson Space Center. What we just saw there, obviously a big part of why this mission is so important to NASA, really just an opportunity to inspire everyone, especially kids, right, Nicole, to dream big and be curious.
Oh man, yeah, the kids are so important, right? I love talking to kids. They are the future of spaceflight. They are the Artemis generation. And, if we could just inspire even one of them to go on to be a scientist or an engineer or maybe even astronaut someday, that's a win.
And now let's turn our focus to the rocket for a little bit. Powering liftoff will be, again, NASA's Space Launch System rocket right behind us. And to learn more about SLS, let's go to Megan Carter, who's at Kennedy Space Center's Visitor Complex at an exhibit dedicated to Artemis and the future of spaceflight.
That's right, Megan. I am so excited to be over here at the Visitor Center, but not just because of launch. I get to introduce you to the moon board. This is obviously a very complex mission, lots of moving parts and pieces. So the moon board is going to allow me to break some of those things down for you just a little bit more in depth, starting with that SLS rocket. Now, the SLS, or the Space Launch System, very big, very powerful. It is going to be producing 8.8 million pounds of thrust at launch. And like I mentioned, very large, as you can see here, going to stand about 322 feet tall with Orion there on top, just a little bit taller than the Statue of Liberty. Now, there are many components that make up this rocket, so I'm going to point out just a handful that you're going to hear about a lot throughout this broadcast, starting with our boosters. These two twin solid rocket boosters are going to be very powerful. They are going to burn for the first 2.5 minutes of flight, and each one is going to stand 17 stories tall. They weigh in at at about 1.6 million pounds each. Now, I am going to jump back out and I'm going to show you a little bit about our core stage. That's going to be known as the backbone, essentially, of our rocket, and it is made up of around 5 components, starting with this engine section down here. This engine section is where our 2 propellants are going to be funneled down through our pipelines, and they are going to be mixed at 2 different temperatures, very complex processing, and they are then going to go on to feed that fuel to our 4 very powerful RS-25 engines. These are going to produce about 500,000 pounds of thrust each at launch, and they will burn for 8 minutes. All right, now jumping up here, we are going to take a look because I just mentioned those propellants. Obviously, we do need fuel, and that is why we have around 535,000 gallons of that liquid hydrogen. That's approximately about the same amount that you could fill an Olympic-sized pool, just to give you an idea. And then we're also going to have that liquid oxygen, and like I mentioned, there's going to be about 200,000 gallons for that one, and they are going to be funneled down through those lines that you see here on the side. All right, jumping up real quick, this is going to be our upper stage. That is where our core avionics are going to be stored, essentially the brains of the spacecraft. And then jumping out super quick, let's see if we can zoom in here, and we can. Those propellants I talked about are going to be stored at cryogenic temperatures. That means thousands of degrees below Fahrenheit, so they have to be kept very cold. And that, all those bumps and ridges there that you see, those are actually going to be an insulation spray that's going to help keep that rocket nice and cool, keep the propellants ready to go, and get us set up for success. Now, obviously, that was a very quick overview of our rocket. I have so much more to show you here on our moon board, but for now, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Megan.
Thank you, Megan. A very impressive demo of the moon board, but also an impressive system, obviously. She mentioned 4 RS-25 engines on the core stage, and actually we have one right behind us here, used during the shuttle program, and I got to get a closer look at it with Space Launch Systems Engines Deputy Manager Philip Benefield.
Okay, so Philip, in terms of size, shape, and function, what we see here behind us, exactly what we see on the pad.
Absolutely, Megan, absolutely. So this is the RS-25 engine.
Impressive.
We have 4 of these on the bottom of the SLS rocket to propel the SLS rocket in Orion into low Earth orbit.
And we've been seeing views of the pad throughout this broadcast, but you mostly only see the bell here. What's happening over here?
Right, so this is generally what we call the power head section of the engine. So the purpose here is that it takes in the propellants from the vehicle tanks, the liquid oxygen minus 297 degrees, super cold stuff. The liquid hydrogen even colder, minus 423 Fahrenheit. There's 4 turbo pumps on the engine that pressurize that propellant up to 9,000 psi in areas. It is all directed into the main combustion chamber where it is burned into hot gas that then is accelerated out the nozzle to produce thrust.
When you say hot gas, what are we talking about?
We're talking 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit gas.
Wow, so we're talking really cold as liquids coming in to the combustion chamber, and then it comes out as really, really hot gas. How do you design, how do you engineer something to control both extremes?
Absolutely, it's very technically challenging. One of the main things here with the nozzle is that since you have the 6,000 degree Fahrenheit gas coming out, you have to cool that nozzle so it doesn't melt. And so the way the nozzle is constructed with these 1,080 coolant tubes. And so each of these coolant tubes flows a small amount of hydrogen. It keeps it cold, and so it doesn't melt during operation.
Wow. I mean, all of the science that you're talking about, it is truly amazing that you guys designed this for shuttle, and yet you've reconfigured it, retooled it to be able to now support Artemis. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's really amazing, the fact that we were able to use the heritage hardware on the Space Launch System. The engine itself, developed through the Space Shuttle program, many upgrades to make it more reliable and improve the thrust as well.
Perfect. Philip, thank you so much. I can't wait to see all 4 function.
Same here. Thanks, Megan. Enjoyed it.
And again, another idea and way that we are learning from what we've built upon and figured out all into this moment.
Yes, with so much more thrust and capability, like we said, we learn all those lessons from previous missions, and we get to involve them here today.
And here we are, the closeout crew in the White Room, getting ready for the astronauts who have just left crew suit up and are now walking down a hallway to greet some family and friends downstairs. Commander Reed Weissman, Pilot Victor Glover, Mission Specialist Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen. Looking excited, ready. now in that elevator to take them 3 floors down. Thumbs up, one more photo, one more photo. Oh, nope, a couple more people in that elevator. Those are important folks. They're going with them to the pad.
Yeah, this is a fun elevator ride.
Yeah.
And, you know, actually you couldn't see them because they're off camera, but the support crew that's actually in crew quarters with us is right there waving goodbye and saying goodbye to you. So it's a really special moment to say thank you and say goodbye to the support crew at crew quarters.
That's amazing. And so again, they will ride down 3 floors, and then soon we'll walk out the doors that you see underneath the banner there that says their names. These doors, the same doors that astronauts who have launched from Kennedy Space Center have walked out of since the Apollo program.
Yes, and you can see another tradition is putting your patch on that archway as well. So I'm sure they did that over the last couple days.
They did. It's actually it's so hard to see because there's so many of them, which is also great, but it's on the door frame on the right-hand side, the very, very bottom.
Awesome.
Great crowd here. A shot now of everyone who is waiting to greet the crew as they walk out of the operations and checkout building here at Kennedy Space Center and will board their ride to the launch pad.
Yeah, this is a really great shot, right? Because you get to see a little bit of what goes on there. So you've got the close family that were in quarantine with them up close. They get a wave goodbye one last time. You've got a little bit of media in the background, and then you've got some NASA employees and a lot of the program managers off to the side as well to wave goodbye one last time and wish them luck.
Yeah, it's a really nice moment. Again, they have had some quality time with family, but this is their final opportunity to say, see ya in 10 days.
Yep, the last wave.
And so there are different pens of people, again, as Nicole was alluding to, specific to the quarantine rules that you followed in order to be able to have that access, have that closeness with the crew. And then on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, the Astrovan. And that is going to be the crew's ride out to the launch pad. This modified Airstream motorhome can seat up to 8 people inside. It has a TV and sound system, and we know they plan to watch a video during their trip out, right, Nicole?
Yes. So I think Top Gun is on the menu,
yes.
And then also Point Break, because you know Christina surfs. So I think they've got a pretty decent entertainment planned. So
I love that. It gets them in the headspace, the right headspace, to really just enjoy the ride to space. NASA's history with Airstream dates back to the 60s when the company created a crew quarantine vehicle for when astronauts returned from the moon. This picture here, President Nixon talking to the Apollo 11 astronauts inside said quarantine vehicle. Then during the shuttle program, Airstream created the first generation Astrovan, a 27-foot motorhome that transported astronauts across KSC to their launch pad. And again, that is what we're going to see today. A very similar picture. Again, the orange suits, the Astrovan, very reminiscent of what we have done before and how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool ride. You know, you get about 20 minutes to get out to the launch pad and watch a movie, listen to some music. It's kind of an interesting, you know, and then along the whole way here at KSC, all of the employees from Kennedy Space Center come out. You can see in the background of the shot you're looking at right now, all of those employees and everybody lining the streets, waving and wishing them luck.
I think this is an emotional moment for a lot of people because this is the last time where a lot of people will be with the crew, because once they get to the pad, there's only a handful of folks with them before launch.
Yeah, definitely. This can be emotional for the crew, can be emotional for the families, of course. I mean, you know, I got to wave goodbye one last time to my sister, and when we walked out those doors, and yeah, it's surreal. You know, it starts to become much more real the closer and closer you get to the launch pad.
20 seconds now from when we expect the crew to walk out those doors. It must be really hard for them to patiently wait for these very specific milestones.
You've got a whole group back there that's telling jokes and keeping it light. So.
And here they are, NASA's Artemis II crew. Commander Reed Weissman, pilot Victor Glover, and mission specialist Christina Cook and Jeremy Hansen taking their first steps outside for their historic test flight. To a wonderful applause from the crowd. They're looking really excited.
Some
and
big
really
smiles.
Ready.
I love that.
It's a great day for us. It's a great day for this team.
A few words from Reed. Great day for us, the team, he said. Thumbs up, more thumbs up. Of course, a lot of pictures. We hear some camera shutter clicks back there. I love the energy of this crowd. Let's go. And so now the crew walking over to each of their pens. The first people closest to them, of course, their family members who got to quarantine with them, correct?
Yes. Yeah, so the ones that are close and waving, those are the immediate family, so spouses, partners, kids.
And we're trying to give them some privacy so that they can have their conversations with their family members. Christina there, she has her husband. Victor has 4 daughters and his wife, they're there. Reed, his 2 daughters are there. And then Jeremy, his wife, 2 daughters and a son. You know, when you were standing in their shoes, Nicole, when you flew for Crew 10, what were you kind of talking about? Like, did you really think about this moment and what you might want to say?
You know, they've all already done their real goodbyes, you know, in person. And so this is more just kind of, again, that last chance to wave, last chance to get one smile. You know, you see Christina there smiling. So this felt much less heavy and just, you know, waving and maybe cracking a joke or something, saying hi. So this was a really, really great moment for our crew.
Reed's 2 daughters there. Reed spoke about when he told them that he was selected to be the Artemis II commander. And he said he was worried. He's a single dad, didn't know how they would react. And actually, he said he was overwhelmed by their support. He woke up the next morning with cupcakes baked by one of the daughters, moon cupcakes.
Yes, I love this story. Moon cupcakes the next morning. Like, how awesome is that, right? Everybody needs their support system, and clearly he has that in his daughters.
Christina said she took a bike ride with her husband and wanted to tell him when the moon rose, but that it was too foggy. But she said he was still very excited and happy for her.
Yeah, the moon's still out there.
A close-up now of, again, Commander Reed Weissman and Mission Specialist Christina Cook. To the right of your screen, as we pan left, we have pilot Victor Glover. Victor told his wife, and they told their 4 kids together, and he said that one of them just started yelling, "Let's go!"
Yes, I love that. Again, the support from the family is awesome.
And Jeremy said his wife and 3 children, super excited. He felt very supported. You know, he did have that tough conversation, obviously, of talking about the realities of this being a test flight, but he said they were super supportive. And now as he walks away, some kisses from Victor Glover to his family, hearts to Christina. Jeremy being a gentleman, pausing so that Christina can take a nice photo without him. Hearts too from Reed there. Hearing Victor saying, "Love you guys," saying that to some of his crew members there. Woody. Some more applause from the group.
A quick wave to some of the NASA program managers, and I think Norm Knight's out there, the FOD Flight Operations Director.
You heard Reed there saying, "Thank you guys," as the crowd picks up again with their applause, and the 4 of them step into their Astrovan. Looking at the clock, very on schedule right now. Again, according to the very detailed timeline of launch today, they are expected to drive off in about 20 seconds.
So far, we're marching toward the launch smoothly.
Do you think they're queuing up the video?
Definitely.
And that's why they haven't left yet? They're like, we can't go without
Gotta get
our
your
point
snacks and movie
break.
ready.
Yeah. Where's the popcorn? Again, good on the timeline. Of course, they do have these very specific milestones, but this is not one that has to be completely stuck to the second and the minute.
Yeah, we will make up that time easily.
They will get a full security escorted ride out to the launch pad. It's a quick trip, 15, 20 minutes. The closeout crew at the pad still just getting everything ready for their arrival. Configuring Orion, right, Nicole?
Yes, so they're probably laying out the seat restraints and getting all of the umbilicals set and ready to go so that when the crew gets there, they can ingress and start getting strapped in and connected to the capsule.
And in our smaller box there, we have a shot of our administrator, Jared Isaacman, bouncing around quite a lot today. Was in the firing room right after the crew weather brief, saying to the crew that they are good for them to start suiting up, and now here to wish them well as they drive out to the pad.
Yes, he's so invested in this mission. I love it. You know, he's been an active participant today, and exciting to see him there at the walkout. So in the van, they're probably getting hooked up to the portable cooling systems as well. So that would be my guess on the slight delay here, making sure everybody's situated, connected to cooling, and ready to go before they take off.
Right, because the orange boxes, we didn't talk about it when we were in the suit-up room, but if anybody noticed, there are these orange boxes, and that's what provides the cooling to those thermal garments. And so those boxes have been staged inside of the Astrovan so that once they got there, they can connect up again so that they're cool and comfortable on the way out.
Right, so they were off cooling from the walkout, you know, said hello to their families and the 80-degree weather here in Florida today. So it can get really warm in the suit quickly if you're not careful. So we want to make sure everybody's comfortable before we drive off.
And then when they get to the pad, of course, and strapped into Orion, then they don't have any need for those cooling boxes anymore. They will get that cooling through Orion, through the different lines and umbilicals that they'll be connecting to there.
Yep, that's exactly right. The Orion capsule and its environmental control system will take over once they're connected to the umbilical.
And so when we were watching them get into the elevator, I said, oh, there's a couple more people going in there. And they were, again, those folks in the white suits that we saw. Again, suit technicians.
Yep. And there they go.
And off they go. Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy now on their way to launch pad 39B, where they will fly to the moon, something no human has done in over 50 years. They may also set a new record as the farthest humans have ever been from Earth, a record set by the Apollo 13 crew almost 56 years ago today. We still hear cheers as they drive away from the operations and checkout building here at Kennedy Space Center. Now, while the crew make their way to the pad, let's get to know each of them even better. First, Commander Reed Wiseman.
The moon, to me, it's the thing that connects me together with all the other humans in my life. I remember being a little kid lying in bed at night and just looking out at the moon in whatever phase it was in, and I was thinking, man, My friends that live like 20 miles away, they can probably look out and see that same exact moon. And then when I was in the Navy and I would look out at the moon and I'd be halfway around the planet, I would think, man, my brother can see that moon where he is and he's halfway around the planet from where I am. To me, it's a connection of life on Earth. We can all look up and see that moon, and it's always changing. The moon is never the same 2 days in a row. I love that. My name is Reed Wiseman. I'm the commander of NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. I grew up in a little town just north of Baltimore, Maryland, about 20 miles north of the city. There was a National Guard base nearby my house, and there were A-10 aircraft that would fly over every now and then. I just would look up at them and be like, man, I want to be up there. I want to go do that. And then my brother went to the Naval Academy, and I would go every year and watch the Blue Angels fly during commencement, and that just started to grow and grow and grow. For a while, I wanted to join the Air Force, and then I realized Navy flies as well, and they fly from ships in the middle of the ocean, and that was it. Like, done deal for me. That is exactly what I wanted to do for my career. Flying is freedom to me, especially when you're in a jet aircraft coming off of an aircraft carrier in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Nearest land is over 1,500 miles away. So when you come off of that aircraft carrier, you are truly just alone with yourself out there. It is a magical experience to be out there all by yourself in an aircraft over the Pacific. It's free. I think anybody who accomplishes something that they set their mind out to, there's no one thing that does it for them. It's a combination of everything. I mean, the way my parents raised me, the way my brother and I, the way our relationship developed over time, my friends, being in the marching band, going to college, setting my own course, learning how to live on my own, being mentored along the way, being, kept on the path to success, but being given the freedom to, make excursions and fail every now and then and regroup and carry on. I think all those things come together in the end to get you where you are. I've had to overcome, I'm a human being. I've had to overcome a lot of fears. I'm pretty scared of heights. I joked about that on the International Space Station, but it turns out I'm only scared like at the edge of a building. When you're up on the International Space Station, even though you're 250 miles up, I never had that feeling of falling or that I was, at risk up there. I just kind of loved the feeling of floating and looking down at Earth. There have been challenges all throughout my life. By far, the biggest challenge was losing my wife in 2020 to cancer and now raising two daughters who are grown up now, but that's been the biggest challenge by far I've ever had to face. It is not easy. Being an only parent, trying to work a full-time job, and raising two kids is something that I think about every single day. I'm very proud of the work I've done. I haven't always done it well, but I've always shown up and tried as hard as I possibly can.
And now Artemis II pilot Victor Glover and his journey to this history-making moment.
I do wonder what it's going to be like when we are really far from Earth and can see it. The sensation of being so far away from everything that you know. I had that sensation on the space station the first time I got to sit in the cupola for a really long time. So I can only imagine what that's going to be like from 200,000 plus miles away. My name is Victor Glover, and I'm the pilot for NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. When I was in 4th grade, I was 10 years old, and that's when the Challenger accident happened. And it helped me understand how the general public felt about the astronaut corps, right? Like, these are the people that we want to be, and that just gave me an easy thing to strive toward. The biggest fear that I've had to overcome in my life is doubting myself. Going to college when no one in my family had gone to college was a huge risk. I had more confidence in my athletic ability than in my academic abilities. I could play football with those college students that I saw on TV, but my classmates that I saw in the lab and around the University Union, I didn't know if I had what they had. I think addressing that self-doubt was a part of, swinging for the fence and trying to go get an engineering degree, not just go to college, but get an engineering degree and then go do something challenging and technical like flying. Apollo is known for sending humans to the moon. Artemis has an opportunity to continue the Apollo story, but I actually think it's important for this story to stand on its own. Artemis is a new program, and we're trying to do new things. And it's great to compare and contrast. When you look at our spaceship, you can see parts that were designed, built, and integrated in another country. When you look at our crew, you see that our crew is international. There are also men and women. And I just think that comparing and contrasting makes the story even richer. The piloting role specifically, I will have an hour and a half or so where I get to fly the spacecraft by hand. We haven't flown that many spaceships. And so the ability to fly one actually in space on a test mission is just a really unique opportunity. I can't tell you how I'm going to feel when we fly by the moon and see the moon up close and the Earth from 250,000 miles away, but I don't use the word excited because I'm focused. You know, what we do, this is very serious and it's very risky, and we are all intimately familiar with that risk. And so if we go out there and we're successful and we can pass that baton on to Artemis 3, that's something to really be excited about.
Great to hear from Reed and Victor in their own words about how they feel about this mission and their role in it as the convoy turns this corner here onto the road where the vehicle assembly building is and where the group that we showed you earlier today, ready with their flags. Wow, that group has expanded exponentially.
Love this.
Yes, this is great.
So many people.
Flags. Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, this must feel so special to the crew to see all of these people here to wish them well.
Yes, this is heartwarming. Look at how many people there are. Everyone is so excited about this mission.
Signs, people have made signs. I feel like the Astrovan has slowed down a little bit, you know, to really take in the moment.
Wow.
That's amazing there. Again, crowds continue going as we are now passing the historic vehicle assembly building. This is where the Space Launch System rocket was assembled and stacked with Orion. Its history, of course, goes back to the Apollo days, but today it is home to the Artemis missions to the moon and beyond. Gosh, still people lining the route. Yep.
I love that.
I do too. It leaves me kind of speechless, you know, just to see all the support, all of the people who want to know that they're thinking of them, they're with them, and the fact that this crew specifically has always said we are going for all by all, this must be really special to them.
Yes, and that's just here on Kennedy Space Center. Imagine the rest of Florida right now.
Yep. Mission Specialist Christina Cook, who holds the record for the most consecutive days in space by a woman. Let's take a look at what she has to say about this mission.
I tell a story, which is one that my dad told me before the Apollo missions when he was just a very little boy. He was looking up at the moon with his mom, and his mom said to him, "Don't worry, Ronnie, we'll never get there." Fast forward maybe 70 years later, it's his daughter that's actually going there. And I think that long arc is something that we can all learn from. The idea that the seemingly impossible becomes possible if you just believe in it and are willing to work hard and come together to achieve it. My name is Christina Cook, and I'm a mission specialist for NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. When I look back at my dreams as a kid, I definitely never thought I would actually get here. I was very pragmatic. Even though I'm a dreamer, I knew that the odds were way against me again, so I might as well do something I'm loving in the meantime. I definitely loved science and math in school and, did pretty well in those things, but I also loved being active. I was always outside. I loved things that made me feel small. I loved looking at the night sky, oftentimes between the pine tree branches, or I loved the ocean. North Carolina also has mountains, and when we go there, I just loved the vastness of all of those things. I loved how they made me feel and what they made me think about, and the vastness of the universe and how much out there was to learn. I'm drawn to exploring. I'm drawn to challenges that involve both mental and physical, and I'd much rather be solving problems wearing a whole lot of equipment and in a harsh environment, and that's just something I've carried with me ever since I was a kid. Thinking about the fears or challenges that I've had to overcome, there are just so many. I mean, basically, that has been the journey. I always say to people, do what scares you, and that means I have to follow my own advice. So doing what scares me meant getting on a plane and going to the Antarctic, getting on a plane and going to study abroad in Ghana, applying to become an astronaut, opening the EVA hatch in the airlock and going out of it into the darkness, strapping myself onto a rocket. And so for me, I think that no matter what the challenge, recognizing that if people believe in you and you believe they believe in you, the challenges seem always a little bit easier. To me, the moon, it represents history. It is a witness plate. Everything that's ever happened to the moon is still written on the moon. Every single person has looked at the moon their entire lives. We see the same moon. That's something really special. It's just the epitome of a symbol of something that's in each of our hearts, but that's also represents exploration and reaching.
And as we continue to watch the convoy, almost at the pad, mission specialist and first-time flyer, Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen.
I have this very distinct memory of seeing an image of an astronaut standing on the moon. It's burnt in my brain because I went back to it so many times in my childhood, and I would look at that image, and I know it had a huge impact on me that humans had walked on the moon. My name is Colonel Jeremy Hansen. I'm an astronaut with the Canadian Space Agency, and I'm a mission specialist on NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. My elementary school years, I grew up on a farm outside of London, Ontario. I spent as much time as I could with my dad on the farm. I learned the value of hard work, for example. If I wanted to go to work with Dad, it was going to be a long day, and I was going to have to not complain, or I wasn't going to get to go the next day. I had a treehouse. I had a vivid imagination. And I changed my treehouse into a spaceship. I made all these dials and controls. I had circuit breakers for switches that I found in the barn. And I was exploring space in my imagination. The most important thing I did to get to where I wanted to go in life, which was flying fighter jets and eventually becoming an astronaut, is I shared those desires with other people. And it turns out, just like you don't go to the moon on your own, if you could, I would have done it a long time ago in my treehouse as a kid. You have to go as a team. I think the biggest impediment to achieving my goals was, of course, myself. And I think that's a common human experience. There are many times where just little things would get in my way, and my immediate interpretation of that was, well, now that goal's out the window. You know, people must have lifted me back up, and somewhere in the back of my head, that persistence came through. And I think that's a common human experience, to doubt ourselves. I've come to this, I guess, realization that I believe that we all have gifts to contribute, and the goal is to figure out how to use your energy towards adding positively to humanity's existence on this planet. But I love it when humanity sets big goals, like sending humans to the surface of the moon with an eye to eventually going to Mars, because when we do that, we can bring together genius from not just even in one country, but around the world. I've also learned from my indigenous mentors that they refer to the moon as Grandmother Moon. So you've probably heard of Mother Earth. They use Grandmother Moon because Grandmother Moon is responsible for the water in their community, just like the moon moves the water around the planet, affects the tides. And I think that's a really beautiful thing for us as we go back to the moon, to think about all the different cultures around the world and how they view the moon differently. And that's really neat because we all share that same moon in the night sky.
What's really neat, too, was that drive to the launch pad, that point of view to see what the crew is seeing as well as their Astrovan rides up the pad slope and are now on the surface, about to walk up to their vehicle.
Yeah, you know, we talked about how tall this rocket is earlier.
Wow.
Look at that.
Yeah, look at that point of view, yeah. Pad 39B, another historic place here at Kennedy Space Center. Construction began in 1964, finished 3 years later. Apollo 10, the full dress rehearsal for the moon landing. That was the first mission to launch from this pad.
Yeah, you know, we've used this pad for a lot of missions. You know, we modified the pad in the 70s and 80s, and then the shuttle missions actually launched from here as well.
And then, of course, Artemis 1 took off from this launch pad, November 2022. And now here we are about to see the Artemis 2 crew get out of the Astrovan and make their way up the mobile launcher to the 274-foot level, where they will embark on their first crewed test flight of the Artemis program.
You know, I think that button in the elevator actually says space when you
hit it.
It. Yeah.
Really?
At least on 39 Alpha it does. So I imagine it says something similar here.
Again, let's take a look at the clock as we wait for the crew to get out. 4 hours, 10 minutes and counting until the top of our 2-hour launch window today. Let's head back across the street to Daryl, who's following the launch team every step of the way.
All right, thank you, Megan and Nicole. And here inside Firing Room 1, we had a nice moment. The launch director, Charlie Blackwell-Thompson, NASA's first female launch director, standing up from her console, taking her cell phone and snapping photos as the Artemis crew that she had just given the go to leave the astronaut crew quarters, driving by, and of course going up the causeway until they got there to the pad. And now we see them coming out of the Astro van there and getting ready to ascend the launch tower. Well, we got a weather brief before they went out to the pad, and of course LWO gave a go. There could be some rain out there at the pad. It's already rained out there already. If you're in the area and you're watching right now, well, certainly you know that there's some rain in the area. There's going to be spotty showers that are going to be coming ashore here, and we expect that throughout our rest of our countdown. But we also are getting forecasts that there'll be some clearing as we get closer to our launch window. Big wave from Reed Wiseman there, and a thumbs up as the crew goes into the elevator to ascend the launch tower to go up to the level where they'll walk across the crew access arm and get into the white room. One of the things that you're going to start to hear now is from the crew themselves. We're going to be airing the Orion to Earth loop, which is the communications that's going between that crew and the launch team here as they walk them through configuring their various consoles as well as getting ready. A nice moment here, and I'll just pause to just look and see as the crew walks across the zero deck, as they call it, which is the deck that's right there even with the engines, and they're taking a moment to go over there and stand up and gaze up at the 322-foot tall SLS rocket. This was part of the plan for the Artemis II crew, and potentially a rocket that could help them make history to go farther from Earth than any crew has before. The farthest distance from Earth when they launch will be roughly around 248,000 statute miles. They're expected to go about 4,000 miles farther than the Apollo 13 crew did. And now they've headed to the elevator to go up. Again, I was talking about the loops. You're going to be hearing from the crew as they discuss with the launch team getting various systems ready to go. And then closer to liftoff, we'll hear the operational launch team loop brought forward ahead of the critical pre-launch polls and then the start of terminal count. And that should be right around L-25 minutes, right before the NASA test director gives their poll and the launch director gives her management poll, which happens at L-17 minutes. Right now, a lot of focus is on, of course, the closeout crew. They've made the way for the crew to get inside the spacecraft now and walk across that crew access arm, and there they are. They have been working on a tight timeline, but they are ready to go, and they are ready to receive the crew and start putting them inside their Integrity spacecraft. That's it from the firing room. We'll send it back to Megan and Nicole.
And Launch Director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson, again, we mentioned her a second ago. Her team have been training extensively for this moment since Artemis 1 launched in November 2022. Today, they have a message for Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy.
Today, you carry the work of thousands and the hopes of millions. Every test, every simulation, every long day and night have led to this moment. This team is ready. The vehicle is ready, and you are ready. From the ground to the moon, Godspeed, Artemis II!
I love that. I just love seeing all of the people who have contributed to this mission and the fact that this is what they've been working for, and now it's culminating today.
Yeah, thousands of people have worked on this mission, and we saw there from the launch team, but human spaceflight is like the ultimate team sport, is what I like to say, and that's just a great example of our team wishing our astronauts good luck.
That shot there that we were just looking at was aimed at the elevator doors, again, to catch the astronauts as they make their way up to the 274-foot level of the mobile launcher. The mobile launcher is the structure you see there. It is not only a way for the crew to obviously access Orion, but also provides the fuels, communications, all that to the rocket. And now we're watching the crew walk across the crew access arm, getting a beautiful view of Kennedy Space Center.
From 274 feet. Woo.
Nicole laughs because Nicole is also, like Reed, does not like heights.
I do not like how open that crew access arm is. But Reed made it across, so that's good news.
It looks like they really enjoyed it. You know, they didn't just walk straight past. Christina and Victor, we definitely saw.
Some thumbs up there,
looking out, yep, that crew access arm. And then Reed, he knows where that camera is. Taking the opportunity to, again, just tell folks, hey, we're doing good. Ready for it.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're actually probably signing their patch.
Yeah, there's a wall with patches there, and so each crew signs when they get up for their launch.
And so this is probably actually the first time a crew is doing this in the White Room of Launch Pad 39B. Don't quote me on that, but I think the signing started with the commercial crew program. So there's a lot of that in the White Room over at 39A. But again, this is 39B. Yep. And so now in this room here, the White Room, again, we will see the crew don or put on their communication caps again, their helmets, their gloves, and remove coverings that they had on their shoes.
Yeah, so they want to protect the suits while they're walking out and up to the White Room, and now they'll finish reassembling those suits. Put the boots on, put the gloves on. You can see they're working their comm caps now, and they'll work the helmets eventually as well.
And so as we watch this process unfold, why don't we take a couple of questions from you guys? What is the most difficult thing about preparing for a flight? Nicole, that question's obviously for you.
Ooh, this is a great question. You know, I think we get such good training. You know, this crew's been training for years. And so they know this rocket and this capsule inside and out. They know all the dangers. They know how to react to anything. So I actually think, you know, preparing your support system and your family, I think launch day is actually tougher for your family than it is for you. And you know, we've heard the crew talk about the difficult conversations that they've had with their family to prepare for this historic test flight. And so I think, you know, the closer and closer you get to the rocket, the fewer and fewer things from Earth you keep. You know, they left their suitcases at crew quarters this morning. They left their cell phones, their laptops, everything. And so you are just a human in a spacesuit about to get on a rocket with all of your loved ones watching. And I think that can be probably one of the most difficult parts about today.
And while you were answering that question, Nicole, we did get a chance to check. Yes, this is the first time a crew has signed the wall of the White Room, again, here at Pad 39B. Let's take another social question now. All launch windows happen to be in the evening. How come? Obviously referring to the April opportunities specific to Artemis 2.
Right. You know, this is a complicated answer. I don't know that I would have the exact mechanics behind it, but it has a lot to do with orbital mechanics and where we are in terms of the Earth and the Moon relationship. And, you know, like we said, we're trying to get on that free return trajectory. And so it has a lot to do with when we can do the perigee and apogee raised burns and the translunar injection. So there's a lot of math that goes behind these launch windows and why they shift and move and why we just so happen to be in the evening for the April launch windows.
Yep. You did answer it well. All right. And before we asked you guys a question, who would you take to the moon with you? Would that be a bestie, a pet, family member, or seasoned astronaut? Overwhelmingly seasoned astronaut. So, Nicole, you and I are going to the moon.
Was that your answer as well?
That was totally my answer. Again, like I thought my husband would not like that answer because he'd want to come along too. But I think if asked, he would also say seasoned astronaut. So
that's fair. like we said, there's a lot of training that goes behind it. These guys can react to anything that comes their way. And so, yeah, if you don't have all that training, maybe you do want someone that's a little bit more experienced.
Yep. So correct answer, everyone. And now we have another question for you. What do you want to know about living in Orion? What the crew eats, how the crew sleeps, how to fly the vehicle, or how free time is spent? Another great question.
Ooh, yes, I'm excited to see what they say.
Yeah, so head to NASA's Instagram or Twitch accounts to vote, and we'll share the results as soon as possible. And while you're doing that, remember to also sign up to be a virtual guest for this mission. Just go to the link we'll pull up on your screen. As a virtual guest, you will get mission-specific information, notifications of any schedule changes, and curated resources straight to your inbox. You will also receive commemorative stamps for your virtual passport after launch and splashdown. Again, we really, really want you guys to engage with us, engage with this mission, come along with us for the ride. So yeah, take advantage of these opportunities to be a part of it.
Yes, it's a mission for all.
And so back in the suit, no, not the suit-up room, the white room. Well, they're suiting up. You can see why I might have slipped that up. So they are continuing to put on gloves. Reed and Jeremy look like they've been checked. Again, they've put on their gloves, their helmets. They've taken off those coverings on their shoes now that they're about to get into Orion. And then suit technicians are also helping Christina and Victor. And they're in this particular order, actually, because this is the order in which they're going to ingress into Orion. Again, we have Reed, Jeremy, then Victor, last Christina.
Yeah, and that just has to do, like you said, with the seat orientation. So as the astronauts sit down and lay back in the capsule, the left side will be Reed, and then below him will be Jeremy. So that's why they're going to get in first, to create space for then Victor and Christina to get in.
And let's talk a little bit now about the closeout team. We saw a few of these folks also in the suit-up room. Suit technicians were in there, again, to make sure that they get into the suits properly. And then a couple of them came out to the pad here to, again, do the same thing. Hey, are you comfortable in these suits? Is everything is as you expected? And then these folks here will help them get into Orion, buckle up. And so we were talking a little bit about their attire, specially made for what they're doing right now.
Yeah, so these, they almost look like, the equivalent of a flight suit, right? They're fire resistant. They've got the straps on the back for emergencies that mimic the same straps that the astronauts have on their suits, so that you can use the same exact equipment in an emergency egress from the pad, for example. So we can use the same equipment to get everybody safely away from the pad as required or if needed.
Yeah, always thinking about those contingencies, how to very quickly, if there were an emergency, get everyone out, not just the astronauts, but also the closeout crew if an emergency was happening while they were still at the pad. And so those suits, flame retardant. Also, when we see them crawl into Orion, you will notice that they are on their knees quite a bit, so built-in knee pads. Really a thoughtful design for the purpose that they're serving today.
Yeah, they're functional, which is exactly what we want, but also they're pretty classy looking, so we did a good job with the design.
I was going to say, they actually look like, the outfits that car racers wear, right?
Yeah.
And then when I said that to the lead of the closeout crew, he's number one if we do see him, Taylor Hose, he said, well, actually, we are kind of like a pit crew, like they're very quickly moving through the operations so that not a lot of time, not more time is spent at the pad than is needed, because this is a fully fueled rocket, Nicole.
Right, yeah, we want to minimize the time that we have more humans up in the white room, but also safely and efficiently get the astronauts ingressed into the capsule. And so that's their main job. That's so yeah, I like the pit crew analogy, works great.
And so, Nicole, as we get ready to see them ingress. I know you'll be, again, an invaluable source as we talk through this part of the launch countdown, because you've been inside a mock-up of the Orion spacecraft. And I know that because you texted me a photo that you took, this selfie in the mock-up, and little did you know I was going to put it in this broadcast.
Yeah, this was actually a really wonderful opportunity. Last week, our flight control team at Johnson Space Center hosted an open house of the Orion mock-up there in the space vehicle mock-up facility. And so I got to spend some time in the capsule with some of the flight controllers who are actually sitting on console right now, and talk to them about everything inside the mock-up. So you can see I've got a bump cap on. It's like a small hard hat. There are a lot of, metal corners and things, and we are still squishy humans at the end of the day. And so they want you to be careful while you're moving around in there. But I got to see, how the crew will ingress. I got to look at the umbilical and the seat straps, and I got to see, the emergency equipment and the stowage and the toilet. I got to see it all. Got to talk about everything. It was pretty cool. It was a really great time. Michael and Bruce were great with me. They answered all of my questions.
Yeah, because it's really good to be able to give that perspective, because, and as you guys will see, yes, we do have cameras inside Orion, and we'll of course take you in, but it doesn't give you a true feeling or idea of how big the space is, how things are configured. Again, like when we see them go in, they're actually on their backs.
Yep.
So, again, it's just hard to really get a sense of the inside there, but Nicole is going to really help walk us through that.
Yeah, you said they're on their backs, and, you have to somehow get there, and so they're actually going to almost barrel roll onto their shoulder to get onto their backs and their feet up on those leg rests. That actually Andre's holding onto right there. You can see Andre number 2's inside getting everything ready for them. And actually, those leg rests for the pilot and commander seat will come off once they get into orbit to create some more space for them.
And it looks like we're getting ready to ingress here. Yep, thumbs up from Reed. Everybody configured with their suits, and so in we go. They actually get inside by walking backwards. That's the easiest way to get in, right, Nicole?
Yeah, so he will step down right over the flywheel or the exercise equipment that they've got in there. We'll talk to that in a second. And then you actually step down right on top of the toilet area backwards. You can see him going now. Oh, and he's already turned around and walking in. You can see Dre's protecting his helmet and his visor there from all that metal.
Yeah.
It's a tight squeeze, but they've done this a lot, so Reed's already all the way across the capsule.
Yeah, that was fast. Impressive, Reed. Impressive. That's why you're the commander. Oh, a heart there from Jeremy again. Yep, Canada.
Yeah.
Canada is about to get into Orion. And so you mentioned Dre. Why don't we talk a little bit about him? So that was NASA astronaut Andre Douglas. And he is actually one of the backup crew members for the Artemis II mission. He trained alongside the primary crew and will step in if any of the 3 astronauts are unable to fly.
Yeah, Dre's actually a classmate of mine, so fellow fly.
Oh,
yeah, so we've worked very closely together. It's exciting to see him in this role.
Yeah, Virginia native, selected as an astronaut candidate in December 2021. He completed his training in March 2024 and was subsequently named as the Artemis II backup crew member just months later in July. Before joining NASA, Andre worked at the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory, where he specialized in spacecraft systems engineering. His work focused on the systems that help spacecraft know where they are and how to get where they need to go. So obviously critical for missions to the moon.
Yeah, he's a wicked smart guy. He's got like 15 degrees, I think, or something.
Oh, my.
So.
And so now here we are back inside Orion, where the closeout crew, each one with either Reed or Jeremy. So it looks like Andre is with Reed. And this is a camera shot of behind Reed's head. So Reed, while Andre is buckling him in, that's a 5-point harness, Reed was configuring his control panel.
Yeah, the displays. We're getting the displays ready so that they can monitor all of the systems and monitor the launch as they go. Christina there signing the wall.
Got to put away the pen. The pen could be foreign object debris or FOD, which is bad for NASA. We definitely want to make sure that we keep track of everything and we know where everything is, because the smallest thing could prevent us from launching or affect the equipment out there.
Yeah, and you'll actually see that most of their tools will be tethered as well, so nothing can fall through a crack or drop.
And so as soon as Jeremy and Reed are good to go in their seats and connected to their communication umbilicals, as Daryl had said before, we will start hearing the loops, the audio mission loops, specifically Orion to Earth 1, which is the communication loop that the crew communicate on to the different teams supporting launch today. And as we said when we were in suit up, after they do communication checks, again, suit leak checks to make sure that nothing went wrong between the suit up room and here, and also to specifically connect them to the Orion systems.
Yes, this will be an integrated test with Orion and the suits to make sure the entire system is working and ready for flight.
And so you'll notice Reed and when Victor sits down, Reed and Victor are the only ones with the display panels in front of them. Jeremy and Christina will actually share a personal computer device, and that will be on Jeremy's leg, and that's how they'll continue to follow along with telemetry and data.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. This is one of the technology demos that we're doing, and so they're going to plug into the system, and it'll be a screen repeater on that, that device for them so that they can see what the pilot and commander are seeing.
OTC at MS2 is online for comm checks.
This is OTC. Repeat.
MS2 ready for comm checks.
The MS2 ready for comm checks. MS2, OTC, Orion to Earth 1, comm check.
OTC, it's MS2. Have you loud and clear on 1.
You're welcome, sir.
And so that was the Orion test conductor speaking with Jeremy Hansen, again, mission specialist 2 for this mission. So his communication check over, you heard him say 1, Orion to Earth 1, has been completed, a successful test. The rest of the crew here waiting in the white room. Again, as Nicole was saying, a little tight there for all of those folks. So Christina and Victor will wait until Reed and Jeremy are done getting buckled in.
Yeah, I think 4 astronauts and 4 suit techs would be a tight fit in that capsule.
Yeah, I mean, take a look at Bill. He's number 3 there, that the suit technician there. He is kneeling where Christina will be in order to get Jeremy situated.